Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own generation? You walk into a room full of Gen Xers. They're self-reliant, a little cynical, proud of how little they need from the world. You listen, you nod, but something doesn't quite click. Then you step into a space filled with millennials, open, expressive, digitally fluent, curating their lives in real time. And again, you feel it, that quiet distance, like you're close, but not really part of it. It's a strange, hard-to-name feeling, not rejection, not loneliness in the obvious sense. Something quieter, like you're there, but not fully seen, like you understand both worlds, but belong to neither. Maybe you felt it at work, in conversations, even scrolling online, where everything feels just slightly out of sync with who you are. And after a while, a thought starts to form in the background. Where do I actually fit? If that question has ever crossed your mind, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not behind, you're not out of touch, and you're definitely not alone. There's a reason for this feeling, one that goes deeper than personality, deeper than preference. It's something built into your timeline, into the exact moment you were born into the world. And once you see it, everything starts to make sense. What you're feeling has a name. If you were born roughly between 1975 and 1986, you belong to a micro-generation known as xennials, sometimes called the Oregon Trail generation. Not quite Gen X, not quite millennial, something in between and often overlooked. You grew up just before the world changed, before everything became instant, connected, and constantly visible. And that's exactly why your experience feels so hard to place. Gen X was shaped by independence and skepticism. Millennials were shaped by connection and expression. But you were shaped by both and fully claimed by neither. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as generational invisibility, when a group exists but isn't clearly defined or recognized. And over time, that creates something deeper, identity ambiguity. It's not that you don't know who you are. It's that no existing category fully reflects you. You remember a world that required patience, privacy, and presence. But you also adapted to a world that rewards speed, visibility, and constant engagement. So when you try to locate yourself socially, culturally, even psychologically, it can feel like you're slightly out of frame, not because you're lost, but because you were never meant to fit into a single box. You were shaped at the edge of two eras. To understand why this feeling runs so deep, we have to go back to where everything started, your childhood. If you're a xennial, your brain was shaped in a world that moves slowly, a world that was physical, tangible, and quiet in ways that are almost unimaginable today. If you wanted to see a friend, you didn't send a message, you showed up. If you needed information, you didn't search, you looked. If you were bored, you stayed bored. And that boredom mattered more than you realize. Psychologically, growing up in an analog environment trained your brain for delayed gratification. You learned how to wait, how to anticipate, how to invest time and effort before receiving a reward. That process built patience, not just as a habit, but as a neurological pattern. It also built imagination. Without constant stimulation, your mind had space to wander. You created stories, invented games, explored ideas on your own. That kind of unstructured thinking is directly linked to creativity and deep cognitive processing. And then there was independence. You were told to go outside and figure things out. Social conflicts happened face to face. You learned how to read tone, body language, subtle emotional cues, skills that can't be fully replicated through a screen. All of this wired your brain for depth, for presence, for real human connection. You were calibrated for a world where attention was sustained, relationships were embodied, and life unfolded at a slower, more deliberate pace. And even now, part of you still operates that way, even if the world around you no longer does. And then, right as your brain was finishing its most important developmental stages, the world changed. Not gradually, not gently, all at once. The internet arrived, dial-up tones, chat rooms, early social media. A completely new way of living, communicating, and thinking dropped into your life just as you were stepping into adulthood. This wasn't something you grew up with, it was something you had to catch up to. Psychologically, this created what we can call a digital shock. Your brain, wired for slower, more deliberate processing, suddenly had to adapt to speed. Constant input, endless information, immediate response. You had to learn new rules, how to present yourself online, how to communicate without tone or body language, how to exist in a space where everything was visible and permanent. And beneath that learning curve, there was pressure. The quiet fear of being left behind, of not adapting fast enough, of missing something important in a world that suddenly moved too quickly. So you adapted, you learned, you kept up, but adaptation comes at a cost. Because even as you became fluent in the digital world, a part of your mind never fully aligned with it. You didn't just enter a new era, you had to rewire yourself to survive it. And this is where the real tension begins. Because you didn't just adapt to a new world, you now live in two at the same time. On one side, you carry the instincts of an analog life. You value privacy. You trust what's real, what's felt, what happens face to face. You don't need constant validation to know who you are. But on the other side, you operate in a digital reality, a world that rewards visibility, speed, constant engagement, a world where identity is performed, not just lived. And holding both of these at once creates a quiet, ongoing conflict, a kind of psychological split. You might feel it in small, everyday ways. You get exhausted by social media, but still find yourself scrolling. You crave silence, but feel uneasy when things get too quiet. You want deep, meaningful conversations, but end up navigating fast, surface-level interactions. Over time, that tension builds. It can show up as digital fatigue, a sense of being mentally drained by constant input, or identity exhaustion, the feeling of constantly adjusting who you are depending on the space you're in. In the workplace, it becomes even clearer. With older colleagues, you may feel too progressive, too adaptable. With younger ones, you may feel outdated, slower, out of sync. So you exist in both worlds, but are fully claimed by neither. And that can lead to a subtle form of imposter syndrome, not because you're incapable, but because you're fluent in two different psychological languages in a world where most people only speak one. But here's the part most people never tell you. This split you feel isn't a flaw. It's an advantage. Because living between two worlds has given you something rare: cognitive flexibility. The ability to shift perspectives, adapt quickly, and understand people who think completely differently from you. You remember what life felt like before everything was fast and filtered. And you also know how to navigate a world that never slows down. That makes you something powerful, a translator, a bridge. You can sit with someone who values depth, patience, and privacy and truly understand them. Then turn around and connect just as easily in a fast-moving digital space. You don't just live in the modern world, you understand how it evolved. And that means you carry something others don't, perspective. You know the value of real connection because you lived it. You understand the need for boundaries because you remember what true disconnection felt like. So if you've ever felt like you don't belong anywhere, maybe it's because you were never meant to stay in one place. You were meant to connect worlds. And if this resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel and share your experience in the comments because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear.